Welcome to Horns Up, and yes, today we've got music on our mind, midpoint 2020 edition. We've reached the halfway point of the year, and Peter, if you told me in January 2020 that all of us are going to be listening to more music than we ever have before because we have lots more time for it, well, I wouldn't have believed you.
Yeah, man. If you told me this in March, the beginning, also, I'd have been like, yeah, what's gonna happen? But here we are, both sitting at home, stuck for I don't know how long. It's like I know we've crossed 100 days for sure.
Yeah, we definitely have. But for what it's worth, the lockdown has meant that both Peter and I have heard lots. And now, because we've reached the halfway point, we've decided to prune our lists to get you our top five picks of albums or EPs released between Jan and June 2020. Now, of course, if you heard last week's episode, we drew up some rules, namely no picks from bands or albums we've already featured on the podcast. That means, though I really wanted to include them in my picks, but albums like Rock the Highway by Girish and the Chronicles, Habits by Elephant Tree, the Head and Beast album, the Riot Peddlers EP, Diarchy Spitfire, Sojourner's Premonitions, Masvida's Vessel from the Mythical Human Vessel trilogy, and so on and so forth aren't on my list. Any of those that would have made this exercise tougher for you, Peter?
Yeah, man. I was like debating should I put Riot Peddlers in there, but I was like, I'm not sure what you'll say or how you'll react. But yeah, I mean, of course, since we talked last week, Elephantry Habits would definitely be high up there. Sojourner, you've already mentioned. Uh, this should come as no surprise to anyone who's been listening to the podcast for a while. Chepang Chata was high up there. Um, and I don't know why, but like grindcore, I've been listening to a lot. So of course, Creative Waste, Condemned,
Hmm.
and now I'm cheating a bit, and I had to like actually check. But the thing is, like, thanks to the band, I actually have Takatak's album Acrophase, and they've
Yeah.
released 4 singles so far from the album. So yeah, almost more than half the album is out. But yeah, since we've already featured them early this year, uh, they're also not part of the list. But yeah, man, come on. I know Zen and Luke, if you're listening, release that album soon.
Yeah, man, you better come on. What are you guys waiting for now? Any case, the other rule was that we do our picks alphabetically, no rankings. So before we get into our picks, Peter, any honorable mentions that you have?
Nah, man. I picked five that really I've been listening to a lot, and it was a little tough. But at the end of the day, I just stuck to five. I mean, I'm pretty sure you have a honorable mention list in those.
Okay, and feel free to react to them one by one. I'll run through all of them. Okay, there was this Acid Mammoth album, which was Under Acid Hoof, Necro Wretch, beautiful black metal. The album was called The Ones from Hell. Velartak's Splid, Intronauts, Fluid Existential Inversions.
Wait,
Uh,
hang on. So wait, you said Velertak. Okay, not bad. I am. I'll take that. What was next? Intronaut. Okay, cool.
yeah, these are all honorable mentions.
not gonna say much.
yeah. okay. Psychonaut had a beautiful album called Unfold the God Man. Demonic Dead Judge, a band that I discovered during the lockdown. Fantastic doom metal.
Okay.
Joe Satriani Shapeshifting was a brilliant album. I really enjoyed it. Maybe because I think it finally had the time to actually listen to a whole Joe Sat album, which I haven't
Okay.
done in a long time.
Yeah.
Traveler, the one of the Canadian bands that we've not spoken to yet, but who I wanted to talk to, um, with their Termination Shock album. That was one of the ones that stood out for me. I mentioned this earlier on the podcast, I think, or was it to you in a previous conversation? I'm not sure, but there's this band called Total Fucking Destruction.
Oh yeah, dude. Love them.
Yeah, but they released a stellar slab of music which was called "To Be Alive at the End of the World," and it was like right at the beginning of the lockdown or around that time when the world really needed that kind of angst.
Yeah.
Another black metal album that had a really that I've spoken to you earlier about was Swart Const with their album Black Waves. Black Rainbows released a beautiful album called Cosmic Ritual Super Trip. Witness is another doom metal band which did a beautiful album called Doom 2. The French band Fang or Fange, I don't know how you pronounce
Yeah,
that. They've
we spoke.
yeah, they've had two releases this year so far. They've done an
What?
EP. Yeah, they've done an EP called Poigne or Point. I don't know how to pronounce that. That's Poigne, and another album called Pudeur, or again, I don't know how to pronounce that. Pudeur. So if someone knows French, correct me on those. Thanks to Jack Townley from Elephant Tree, I discovered Lord Buffalo's Tohu Wa Bohu, which was fucking fantastic.
Just left to listen to that one.
Huh.
But yeah, that's on my list to listen list.
Okay, Cult of Fire had pretty good two EP or two album. I don't know how you want to club them together, but I'm clubbing them together. The good black metal in the forms of Nirvana and Moksha.
Yeah.
Long Distance Calling. I have to shout them out because yes, we are in touch with the band. We'll be getting you an interview with them soon. They are fucking killing it on their latest album, which was released just last Friday. It's called How Do We Want to Live. Oh my god, what fucking this was like absolutely fucking awesome music. And yeah, that Void Ceremony album that you shared with me again just last week's release, pretty good stuff. Again, another release that was just last week, which was the Bell Witch and Aerial Ruin release, Stygian Bow Volume 1. I don't know if you've heard that one yet.
No, I haven't.
And I'm going to round this off by honorably mentioning one of the artists that I've introduced you to, who released a beautiful album in the beginning of the year. Her name is Poppy, and the album was I Disappeared.
I don't know, Poppy. I'm still on the fence on her, dude. Didn't she do like a bunch of other crazy stuff recently? And I linked you to, I can't remember, like some cover or something.
Yeah, she did a cover of Tattoos, All the Things She Said, which is,
Ah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
But what was even better was seeing Poppy at performing live with WWE,
yeah, yeah.
NXT. Yeah, those live performances were awesome. Yeah, so there you have it. Those were my long list of honorable mentions, and now let's just get through them since I've been talking a lot on this podcast so far. Peter, start off with your list.
Okay, so uh, this is like some coincidence of sorts, but this album released in January.
Hmm.
And for those of you who've been listening to the podcast for a while, know I'm a huge fan of Holy Roll Records. Uh, so this is a psychedelic doom act from Leicester, UK. They're called, and I'm going to butcher this, I'm sure, Gargantua. So they released an album called Toward the Sun. And
Hmm.
what's really cool about the album is like it was in a similar vein to Elephant Tree for me, but yeah, this released in Jan and it's still on my phone. I still listen to it quite often, and it's one of those albums you kind of listen and you just kind of get totally immersed in. So like when I'm taking a walk or just want to like zone out or something, this is I'll just listen to and you get completely lost in it. While most doom music is kind of like, you know, down tempo-y or downerish, this is kind of the opposite. It kind of leaves you a little more uplifted of sorts. I mean, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Hmm. I just did a quick search on Apple Music. They've also got a new EP out, which was
Yeah.
released in May 2020. So yeah, thanks for telling me about them. I'm gonna definitely check them out because it definitely ticks all the boxes that I would want to subject my ears to. Okay, so you started off with psychedelic music. Let me start off with the same. My beginning letter is E. I've got Elders Omens as my first pick. This was released in April, and Omens is the fifth full length by Elder. Now, Elder has a sound that's slightly tough to classify because it's this excellent amalgamation of sorts of progressive and psychedelic, and not necessarily fuzzed out, but it's still warm as fuck, and it's really heavy. And that magical mix kind of shines on this album too. It's also a bit different from previous releases because There's a new drummer, there's a new guitarist, which means that the band is no longer a trio. But those additions are more than welcome because you end up with songs that I thought were more nuanced than before, and dare I say, a performance that just sounded tighter. Again, I thought there was a review by Stereo Gum that kind of summed it up the best by saying that it's music for watching clouds drift indifferently by and for losing track of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I heard a bit of that Elder album, so yeah, that's a good description for anyone who's never heard Elder before. But yeah,
Okay, so that's our first picks. What's the next one, Peter?
well, it's a band you had in your honorable mentions. Uh, it starts with the letter I, and that's
The Intronaut album.
yeah. I mean, it released out in Feb. It was part of our albums to look forward to in 2020, and yeah, I mean, like I guess why it's already so high up in my list this year, to put it into context, is I didn't really enjoy their previous album all that much,
Oh,
and
really?
yeah, and for some reason, like the moment I heard, like, the singles Pangloss and all of that, there was that buzz, and I was like, okay, there's something new on the album, something different happening there. So yeah, I mean, uh, fluid extensional inversions. I quite enjoyed it. It's still an album I revisit from time to time, and one of the things about this album, even the Gargantua album and things like that, is with each listen, if you kind of like put yourself into it, it's like an onion, right? You
Hmm.
just find like these new layers, these new things, and yeah, you can tell like a lot of time has spent in like crafting this soundscape of sorts in there. So it's one of those things where it makes me feel that the more you kind of put effort listening into such kind of tracks or music, the more you kind of get out of it in a way. So, if that makes some sort of sense.
It does. It does. Now, I'll tell you why this wasn't higher up on my list. It was only an honorable mentions. Um, I found the album good, no doubt, but somehow it didn't wow me the way previous Internet albums have. Maybe it's because I was already exposed to the singles, and it still kind of sounded as the same Internet formula. Like it didn't really wow me to the level of okay, it needs a lot of multiple listens. Maybe that view will change. I don't know.
Yeah. All right, you're
Okay.
up next.
Ha. So I'm moving all the way to letter S.
Already,
With
okay.
yep, already, yep. So the band is called Seven Planets, and the album is called Explorer. Seven Planets is an instrument only project, and Explorer is their third album, but the first they've released in 8 years. So the thing about instrumental only projects is that they tend to get stuck in a formula, and everything really just ends up sounding the same. Like two or three or even four albums in, but that really doesn't apply to Explorer. And pardon the pun, but this one got me to explore a variety of moods, which is why I keep revisiting them. It's got stuff that makes me go full happy Energizer Bunny, excited, to just Sunday morning smiliness, to sheer warmth of comfort and hope. I guess that's why it resonated. This record feels honest. There's no over the top hysterics or anything of that sort. It feels like what you'd hear from your friends who play in a band and have invited you to their jam room, and it's just a long jam of sorts. The only minor complaint I had was that the drums sound clicky and thin, but they could definitely have been boosted a little bit. Again, I think I've told you about this one multiple times, or at least once on WhatsApp.
Probably, I can't remember now, but the name does sound familiar.
Hmm. Okay, what's next on your list?
Okay, this one is like a complete shift in sound, and this is a band from Ankara, Turkey. It's called Molested Divinity. The
Hmm.
album's called Unearthing the Void. and this came out in March on New Standard Elite Records, another record label that, if you know, like they release just like the most brutal and heavy music known to
Yep.
mankind, and it just like keeps pushing the envelope. Uh, but yeah, I mean, one thing about this album is that, in a very strange way, like even though it's all just like, those guttural growls and, uh, how else do I describe the drums except like face smashing in, and then just like tremolo picking, it just goes faster and more brutal. It's just something that, you just want to like get you pumped up. So yeah, and I've really enjoyed. I mean, Molested Divinity I've been following for a while, but yeah, this album is something else altogether, and it's like on hyper speed of sorts, just like so fast. And each track, you think like, okay, how much more heavier, how much more brutal can they get? Oh yeah, they deliver. They deliver. They keep going on. So yeah, I've
Let's get
really
them on the
enjoyed it.
podcast.
Yeah, we should. I've actually so the vocalist for the band, Batu, is actually uh, one of like the old guys from the Turkish scene of sorts. He has this
Hmm.
other band called Senotap. So I didn't make the connection, but yeah, it's cool to have see him on this. So I've spoken to his Batu a while back, so I should definitely connect with him again.
Awesome, awesome. So I'm moving on to the letter T. I'm guessing this album is on your list as well. I'm not sure, but we have to talk about Temple of Voids, The World That Was.
I don't know why it would have been in my honorable mentions, but I just like didn't include
Ah,
it.
so it's not in your list. Okay,
No,
cool.
no.
All right. So this album is by a band I'd never heard before. Okay. So I'm putting it out there. And well, now I'm like this huge fan of sorts because it was so freaking good that it got me super excited to discover their earlier releases, which kind of uh, doesn't happen a lot with Death Doom for me, even though I really like Doom. But their previous releases completely like led filled in the context for why this was one of the most anticipated albums of the year. But enough about all of that. Let's just talk a little bit about this album. Released in March, The World That Was is Temple of Void's third album. And in my opinion, this album should definitely be listed as an example in the heavy metal dictionary of examples for death doom perfection as such. The tempo throughout is largely mid paced, but there's so much fucking atmosphere. The riffs are great. The songwriting just keeps building a lot of suspense and just releasing all that tension. It's like a constant ebb and flow of stuff. It's very masterfully done. I really enjoy interludes that make sense and actually help bring an album, like, actually add to the album rather than distract you from it. And they've got a fabulous acoustic interlude, which I think is a signature of sorts now. What can I say? It's a brilliant fucking album.
Yeah, I've quite enjoyed it also. And the cool thing about Temple of Void is like they're so consistent now. So
Yeah.
like even if they put out an EP by the end of the year, it's one of those blind buys literally for me, just because the way they've kind of cemented their position. And yeah, like Death and Doom, there are like so many multiple ways you can mix it up and all, but these guys just have got it like perfected.
Yep.
So yeah, I hope they don't try and experiment any sorts with their sound anymore.
Well, this album, like having heard their previous releases, this album kind of is more doomy than it is deathy. If you,
Yeah,
which is a bit unlike what their previous releases was, but I think this album is the sweet spot for me at the moment, at least. So yeah, I'm okay for experimentation as long as it hits the sweet spot.
all right. Uh,
You're
so
next.
yeah, I move on to S now. Another label again who's been consistently putting out great music is Everlasting Spew Records. So earlier, I think I can't remember if I sent this to you, but like earlier this week, or last week at least, uh, they released an album by a band called Xerox, and it's called Vor. So the cool thing about this band, right, is it's put together by this guitarist called Antonio Ferrer,
Hmm.
and he started it out as a solo project. And now, like, as this is their third or fourth release, yeah, he's got together like this all-star lineup. He's got like members from Citelis, Benighted, Sutra, and they're all like an international lineup. And these guys are all like, he's got like Kevin Pardis from Benighted playing drums on this album, and it's just crazy. Like, it's 5 new tracks and like two demos from 2011, but this is just like all balls out death metal. I mean, like, it kind of reminds me like what death metal should sound like. This is not like overproduced, none of that triggered stuff kind of thing. It's just like pure death metal. And yeah, I've really enjoyed that, even though it's come out recently. But pretty sure this is gonna stay high up on the list before the end of the year.
Okay, cool. So, nice coincidence. I've got an album that was released very recently too. This one's by a band called Wild Creature, and the album is Glory, Glory, Apathy Took Helm with exclamation marks in them. This one's a bit of a doozy. One of the few albums that I picked out purely because of the artwork. Google it right now. Glory, Glory, Apathy Took Helm. Google that and tell me that isn't one of the most striking covers you've seen in a long time. So once you've digested that artwork, let's talk a little bit about the music. The reason why it's a bit of a doozy was because the album forced me to go back and revisit it a lot of times. Now, it forced me to do this. I didn't like do it out of my own will as such. And I'll tell you why that was. It also maybe because of proximity bias, because the album was released a couple of weeks back in June itself, but what you said about the onion kind of holds true over here. There are a lot of layers. The It's very grimy. It's dirty. It's got a very sludgy, slow pace to it. It's almost suffocating in parts. It's not funeral doom, but there's a lot of repetition and textures and um, that soundscape, I guess, is what's making me go back to this one a lot. I have to mention that there is a fabulous choir driven song that will surely get lots of space in reviews and opinions, etc. So check that particular track out definitely. It's weird overall, this album, but it's great weird. It's not bad weird.
Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't checked it out as yet, considering, like, I'm just looking up and I've actually been getting their albums for a while now. So I should definitely check out this new one. And yeah, it's weird is, I think, the simplest way to describe their music.
All right. What's your final pick?
My final pick is an album which I think I've told you about, so it shouldn't come as any surprise to you. Ulcerate, Stare into Death, and Be
Hmm.
Still.
Yeah,
I mean, so this is the
I was
fifth.
expecting that.
Yeah, this is the fifth album from the, I think, probably the best known New Zealand metal act. Uh, and again, what happened with Ulcerate, right, is that I think why again I enjoyed this album a lot more is because on their previous one, I don't know where they kind of like lost it in a way, because like Ulcerate is known for that, dissonance, atmospheric, uh, just like gives you the creepy crawlies kind of sound, right? That's the kind of soundscape that they build, and then they just hit you with that doomy death kind of thing. But yeah, this one, it just released at the right time, I guess. And I mean, come on, Stare into the Death and Be Still. It's like a metal title kind of thing. So been listening to that a lot, and again, you just get lost in this is the kind of, like, because I guess, and that reflects in all my previous picks, is because, like we said at the start, you have time to like kind of just get immersed in this kind of music,
Hmm.
uh, and just kind of like surrender of sorts. So yeah, I've really enjoyed this. It does, like, I mean, for some people, I guess it depends the mood, because it creates a bit of that claustrophobic kind of feeling. So it
Hmm.
leaves you a bit uneasy by the end of it, and at some point you're just like, okay, what's gonna happen next, kind of thing. but
Mm,
it's worked for me. So yeah, my last pick, ulcerate, stare into death and be still.
mm. I had that album on my long list, but I think I need to spend more time with it because it still hasn't wowed me. Even though, uh, like, I'm pretty sure this album will be in the top tens at the end of the year for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think the timing also was great. I mean, if you look at some of the albums, right, they just released at the right time of sort, like March, April, when everyone kind of had more time to uh, get into this music and all. I mean, I don't know. That's just what I feel at this point.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Okay, so that brings me to my last pick. And again, it's a band that we've featured on the podcast, not this year. Haha, haha. We've not
Nice
featured
one.
them actually. I've only spoken about them, and this should come as no surprise to you. But it's Wolf Tooth's Valhalla.
Yeah, I was waiting for that one.
Ha. Yeah, because if you've been with Honsab right from the start, you'd remember that I chosen Wolf Tooth's first album, the self-titled Wolf Tooth, as one of my top picks for 2018. And well, that means I had a lot of expectations from this album. Valhalla released in May, and as the second record, it does a superb job of basically upping the ante for the band. You can sense that there was a lot of homework and thought on the songwriting front. And while the lyrics and vocals aren't usually a style I really enjoy, on this one, I have no complaints whatsoever. It's a fuzzy, warm stoner doom album that's got some great songs on it. It's really quite superb. And yes, we've been trying to fucking get them for a long time now, but no luck yet. Oh well.
Oh well, let's tag them on Facebook once this episode goes up.
Hey, we are fans. Talk to us now.
But yeah, I can't remember. Like I think the single is Fire Breather, right? That they put out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's quite catchy. Like by the second or third time around, you're just like Fire Breather. So you want to sing along. It's got that feel good thing. So yeah, I'm not surprised you brought up Wolf Tooth.
Yeah. So that was it. We've each done our five picks. Kind of tells you, like, if you were to really analyze our individual picks, well, at least all of my picks are in that weird, doomy kind of genre soundscape, which means I'm choosing music and repeatedly listening to music that makes time pass by easily. On your front, though, Peter, I must say that you've got music that also is giving you a lot of energy.
that that's one of the reasons I've been listening to a lot of different kind of music and things. So yeah, that works. That's a
Hmm.
good way of putting it, actually.
What does that tell the world about how we are handling this lockdown? You can take your time and think about that and then let us know. You can reach out to us at honsapod.com or just hit us up on Twitter. We are at honsapod. I'm at Asmawani,
I'm at Trend Crusher.
and this has been Horns Up.
Hands up, guys.